Hey guys, Disorder Magic here, and two more shocking spoilers from Ixalan. Now, with all the cards that look cool and awesome and exciting and playable, which, honestly is not that many because a lot of them cost 6, kinda limits you to playing treasures, but anyway, there's two cards that, jumped out immediately to me and everybody in the entire community from what I heard. So let's talk about the one that nobody cares about first, Spell Pierce. It was printed originally in Zendikar. It's a common. It was very recently in Modern Masters 2017 edition, aka MM3. And a foil one was like a lot. I mean, I think it was like upwards of like $10 because it's just such a famous spell. It's played a ton. A little bit in Modern. I mean, I've never seen it, but from what I heard, it's played a lot in Modern. It's good in fast formats, so obviously it's a one-cost counterspell, and it's basically negate meets mana leak. Mana leak is a little bit better because it's wider open, but sometimes you only have one mana open. I mean, Modern is fast. But the problem I have with Spell Pierce in Standard is that it's not that good. I mean, it's kind of good, and it is kind of disruptive, but there's a ton of free casting. Treasures are going to let you be completely tapped out on lands and still have, emergency mana sitting on the field for, like, an actual negate. And might I remind you, negate only costs 1 more. I mean, the difference between 1 and 2 mana is not as big as the difference between 3 and 4 mana, which you're probably thinking, but mathematically it is, but really gameplay-wise it isn't. It all comes down to like probability and likelihood of somebody having an amount of mana left over after casting an average spell. So early game, what are you stopping? Usually early game people drop out creatures. I mean, you could like kill a planeswalker summon on turn 3 with this, but late game, they probably have the 2 mana, and that's when they'd be dropping the really, really expensive stuff, so you might still be able to do it, but it all depends upon what your opponent's playing. I mean, if it's just a kill spell and they have 7 mana on the field, this is a dead card, it does nothing, and unlike Censor, this doesn't have Cycle. I mean, Censor without Cycle would be unplayable garbage. It's moderately playable garbage with Cycle on it. I mean, if you're going to counter something, counter something. I mean, just dominate the board state and then leave your mana open. Either that or run some free casting garbage like as foretold. I have personally played at FNM so many games where people get all pissed off because they're running unreliable kill spells like Fatal Push and, oh, everything I want to kill is 3 and up. Oh, I can't get Revolt to go off. Oh, I've got Censor, but you got a bunch of mana out. Now I've got a dead card in my hand. Oh, no. Yeah, build your deck conservatively. I mean, there's no reason to make it fast as in, early game turn 2, 3, 4 type of spells where they're going to work that early. When you know that the game isn't always that fast, like especially if your deck isn't that fast. I love it when people are like playing Censor and they're playing like a super long combo deck. Well, get out a better spell. Either that or stuff your sideboard full of actually good spells and then sideboard in whatever one is relevant to the most disrupt-worthy thing in the deck. So overall, Spell Pierce, I mean, it's a good card, but only if you're running the absolute fastest decks that just need to stop a non-creature spell and don't care about creatures. That is so strangely specific, but I don't know, I guess this could maybe be okay in some decks. It's just not that exciting. It's just very shocking that we're seeing this in Standard at all, but it's also kind of not worth much because it was just printed in Modern Masters 3. So just kind of a loss overall, but it is interesting. It's interesting to see this again because it's a famous, played, powerful card, just not in Standard and not in most deck designs. Next up, we have the exact opposite, Opt. We haven't seen Opt since it was printed in Invasion, so it has never ever been in Modern. Keep that in mind, because Invasion came out approximately a million years ago. So this is what pro wannabes who love jargon and D&D players call a cantrip. So let me read it first. It's a 1-cost blue instant, and it says, scry 1, then draw a card. So, oh boy, it's Jace's first ability from, Shadow's Jace, in card form. Oh boy, and then you lose the card, and you can't do it next turn, so what's the big deal? The big deal is math. I'm just going to throw this out here without explaining it because I'm sick of explaining math, and then people ask a bunch of questions down in the comment section. At this point, just take my word for it. Oh, and if you don't believe me, you're going to contradict me, you damn well better have equations in your comment or I'm just going to delete it. Also, you're wrong. I'll just warn you ahead of time. If you are playing a blue deck, that is the only condition. Put this in your deck. It is exactly that complicated. That is all there is to it. It's an automatic include, and it lets you play with 56 cards. Not literally, but as soon as you draw this, you dump 1 mana, which is not 0 mana, so, I mean, it's not Gitaxian Probe. So you dump 1 mana, and then you scry 1 and draw a card. So, okay, this card replaces itself, as they say, because it's like, oh, I drew this one, tap a mana I probably didn't need, and then go draw a different card. So every time you hit this card, it's automatically gone and turns into the next card under it, sort of. I mean, there's a scry 1 there, otherwise this would be completely pointless. Like, what would even be the point of a card it's just a 1-cost instant that just draws a card? That would be like cantrips gone crazy. So this lets you potentially skip ahead 2 turns in cards you don't want, I guess you could say. So you're probably thinking, yeah, but what if I'm playing like an all-creature tribal deck and I don't care what I draw? Well, you're going to care what you draw if you draw too many or too few lands. You could actually probably keep a 1-mana hand as long as Opt is there, because it's not exactly attuned with the Aether, but you could also use it to almost guarantee that you're going to pull your second land. It's a little dangerous, but if you've got a bunch of solid 2-cost spells, I would maybe consider it. So going back to the math of this for a second, playing with 56 cards, effectively, makes your deck too damn consistent. So if you're trying to get a combo off, or you're trying to, just mow through your deck and get, like some kind of one particular card or a combo or whatever, or even if it's not a combo, because I keep mentioning combos because that's what Scry Draw does, is it goes and fetches combos. You could just be looking for like a Sphinx or like a 4-cost creature or a 5-cost creature now that you have the mana. So it could just be, okay, I kind of need one of these cards out of my deck. It would be nice. It would improve my chances of winning at this exact time. Well, you could speed through your deck pretty damn quick if it's basically not 60 cards. Now, that 1 mana is not insignificant, but on like turn 5, it almost is. So think about this. Okay, so what card would be more valuable than this? The answer is nothing, because if you're thinking, well, I need 8 of these, and 12 of these, and 8 of these, or whatever. That's how my deck works. I got, 8 counter spells, 8 removal or pin down spells, 12 creatures, and I don't know, 2 sets of 4 planeswalkers or something. I don't know. Well, okay, that's pretty well balanced. Well, why would you throw an Opt? Because you're not going to take out 4 planeswalkers. That's half the planeswalkers. You're not going to take out a third of the creatures. The deck wouldn't work. You'd never get a creature out. So there's no room in the deck for Opt. That is incorrect. Take out 1 planeswalker, 1 creature, 1 counterspell, and I don't know, one of whatever I just said that I forgot, didn't write it down. Opt would get you to whatever card in those categories you need faster than the cards existing themselves one at a time in the deck. That's the best way I can describe it. If you really want, do the math, do the equations, I'm right, trust me. Even in a 100% tribal deck, like we'll just say Merfolk, I assume, you could still get yourself to a better Merfolk or a less redundant legendary Merfolk, or like I said, just avoid a land or grab a land. So the whole scry 1, draw 1, I mean, that's, either verify the card you need and draw 1 for 1, which, 1 for 1, that's not bad, or get rid of a card you don't need and then take the next one, which, like I said, is skipping into the future card-wise. And so you can either make sure it is a land or isn't a land. In almost any deck, that would be a relevant use of this. So that alone is good, but then, like I said, you could say, well, I don't really need another generic Merfolk. I need the one that gives them all counters, or makes them all unblockable, or makes them all hard to target. That's the one I'm looking for, and this will get you to it quicker. And that is like the least combo-ish deck that you could possibly build, is just straight tribal. Well, except for like 40 copies of that stupid rat, but that's not in standard. In that case, there would be no reason to run Opt. So there are a very narrow set of decks where you would not run Opt, but not anything normal. So like I said, mathematically, auto-include. If you're playing blue, play Opt. That's all there is to it. There is no reason not to play Opt, because mathematically you could fit into any deck. Some of the time it would change the balance, but if you're doing like an 8-8-12-8 deck, you're going to lose anyway. You are not going to draw 1 from every category and make that work, whether it's a combo deck or just some kind of balance, generic Swiss Army deck. You're going to end up just not drawing one of those 12 creatures and have no creatures on the field while you stall out with your cards and do nothing. Those types of decks are super hyper complex, and they tend to just kind of stall out. So, I mean, this isn't like game-ending bad, it's just annoying and it's bad card design, so not the end of the world, and oh no, they made people playing specifically blue a little tiny bit more consistent. But you could get a very, very toxic degenerate deck that's like some kind of gimmicky redundant combo with enough pieces to go together, like for example the one I just said in the last video, Mechanized Production and Revel in Riches plus Opt. Okay, you need to get one of those cards out, run this, and then run Contingency Plan, and you're all set, except for the fact that you would need like stall cards, control cards, kill cards, and creatures and treasure generators. Hey, look, we're back to the overly complex deck that'll never balance correctly. So I have my doubts about that deck, but cards like this help it, and that's what I'm concerned about. Now, do keep in mind, though, that Anticipate is cycling out, which is very, very, very nice. And actually, come to think of it, Contingency Plan is actually cycling out too, but there are a lot of, heavy scry, repetitive scry stuff, a lot of energy scry, like a tap and scry kind of thing. I thought there was a Sigiled Starfish clone out there somewhere. So overall, are people overreacting to this card? Yes. Do I absolutely hate it? Pretty much, yeah. I mean, I'd say great disdain. It's not like, what were they thinking? It's too basic and too simple to be like, oh, this is mind-blowing. But should they have printed it? No, absolutely not. They never should have reprinted this. You may have seen my recent video called something like How to Design a Bad Card in Magic, and one of the most common themes was take a basic tenet of the game and ruin it. Well, like I said, Opt mathematically lets you play with 56 cards. The fact that there have to be 60 cards in your deck and you cannot play with more than 4 copies of a card is a check and balance to make sure that you can't get a degenerate, stupid combo off too easily. But just think, if you could run 12 copies of Willbreaker, that would be it. Everybody would just do that. They would just run like 28 lands and a bunch of dummy spells and a bunch of targeted crap. Like if they shrunk it to 40 but left everything else the same, oh my god, would people just be playing combos? All you would see is combos, and people tend to not like combo decks very much. They're disruptible, they're glass cannon-ish, but it doesn't feel like a big creature fight and, oh, I did this and you did that, and it's a bit of a chess match. It's just, oh, I blasted you with my combo, or, oh no, my combo fell apart. That's it. Those are the only 2 things that can happen. This is kind of boring. This is a dumb game. That's just a boring game of Magic. So, they need to get away from that. They need complexity, and they themselves have said decisions. They want decisions because play decisions feel better and they feel more fair whether you win or lose than if somebody just top decked the card they needed and that was it. Thus, all the modal spells. I mean, that is literally what the staff said. We're putting in modal decision stuff so that the players have more options and individual cards can do more so that there's more decision skill and prediction and memory in the game. Well, not with Opt. They're going in the absolute different direction. There's no decision to be made here. You just put it in your deck and then play it. Yay, 56 cards. Now, might I remind you that while this isn't quite as degenerate as Gitaxian Probe, they just banned Gitaxian Probe from Modern for the reason of the fact that it lets you play with 56 cards. I think they said that word for word in the actual press release announcing the ban. So, I mean, if even they think that cards like that shouldn't exist, why did they just put this in the game? So, once again, I mean, I'm very, very against them reprinting this. I don't think it should have been in Standard, but is it just game rooting, terrible end of the world? No, not even close. It just makes blue decks a little bit better, and I guess that's not the end of the world. It's just, it very much angers me that this is where they went with the card design. There's certain mechanics and things and gameplay methods and stuff that they've been shying away from lately, and they said they're getting away from, and this is just a step right back in the opposite direction. So, whatever, a little bit disappointing, but like I said, don't get, losing sleep over it. It's not going to ruin Standard. It's just going to be mildly annoying and mildly accelerating. So what do you think of these 2? Is there some kind of trigger I'm missing? Like, is there something that says every time you scry or every time you draw a card, then blah, where this would be amplified and it would become a problem? And what do you think of Spell Pierce? Are you going to put it in? Can you think of a fast deck that runs blue? Because I can't. Like a fast deck that would actually merit this? And would you just rather play something that can intercept all types of spells and then has a drawback? And what do you think of Ixalan in general? Because it still looks pretty fun to me. It looks, very fair and playable and all right. I look forward to seeing what your guys' take is on it, and I'll see you guys next video.